Welcome everyone to the webinar, CFIC's webinar. CFIC would like to acknowledge that this virtual event from coast to coast to coast and around the world is taking place on the ancestral and unceded territory of Inuit, Métis, and First Nations peoples. We also acknowledge that not all people came here as migrants and settlers, recognizing that some of those were brought in voluntarily as enslaved people or by means of human trafficking. We pay tribute to all of those ancestors and to their descendants. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility to improve relationships between nations, peoples, and cultures, to acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and to consider how we can each try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the president of Center for Inquiry Canada. My name is Shauna Watson, and our guest today is Jeff Russell, joining us from Australia. And Jeff Russell has qualifications in mathematics, has written software all of his working life. However, in the past decade, he's devoted increasing time to writing nonfiction with the simple goal of making the world a better place. A 3-decade vegan and member of the Animal Justice Party, his first book in 2009 was CSIRO Perfidy, a critique of the high red meat CSIRO total well-being diet, the most environmentally destructive diet on the planet. His concerns about climate change and the ineffectiveness of renewables led to a re-examination of his lifelong opposition to nuclear power. After considerable research, Jeff realized that the reasons people fear nuclear are built on obsolete knowledge about DNA and cancer. Jeff's second book, Green Jacked: Derailing Environmental Action on Climate Change, is available on Amazon as an ebook. Go ahead, Jeff.
The original topic of this talk, animal activism, veganism, and duck hunting, I've narrowed the focus quite a lot down to just dealing with the ducks. Part of why I've done that is, one, I know that hunting is very, very big in Canada, and particularly duck hunting, among other things. So I figure it's relevant. And the second reason is that because most of what I do these days isn't so much animal activism as animal politics. As it's said in my introduction, Shannon said in my introduction, I'm a member of the Animal Justice Party. So we aim to get people into Parliament. We have 3 people in Parliament in Australia at the moment. We aim to get people in Parliament and make change that way rather than the activism rule. Not that I've got anything particular against activism, but I think that politics is increasingly the way that things will have to go. It's the way power flows in our society, is politics. All right, so that's why I've restricted the view to just ducks rather than animal activism and veganism. And with that, I'll get started. Pond is an organisation in South Australia. It's just a vehicle for doing things, really. It's nothing more. It's not a huge organisation with lots of members or anything. So I'll refine this to the physics of cruelty. Hunting regulations in South Australia are actually quite similar to Canada from what I can make out. I didn't find all of the legislation in Canada because, as in Australia, you have all these provinces and we have all these states. And every state in Australia has a different set of rules. And as I gather, every province in Canada has a different set of rules. And that makes legalities quite difficult. So in Australia, South Australia, we have, the law says that if you can't kill an animal in a manner that causes the animal unnecessary pain, and it's an offence to intentionally, unreasonably, or recklessly cause the animal unnecessary harm. I looked up Alberta, and you have rather similar things in Alberta. I'll come to that shortly. So what I'll demonstrate in the remainder of this presentation is that shooting ducks with shotguns is intrinsically in violation of the law. It is illegal. It's illegal in every state in Australia, It is still practiced in 3 states in Australia, but it is banned in other states. It is illegal everywhere that it happens, and everywhere that you have laws like this. And these sorts of laws are quite common. So what actually, and I'm just going to show you what actually happens when you go and watch people shooting ducks. And this is what happens when you are a duck shooter. What happens when you see people shooting ducks? Either you see the duck being hit and downed, it falls out of the sky. It might fall directly out of the sky, or it might fly on for 40 or 50 meters. But you'll generally know that it's down. If it's not downed, you have no idea what happened to it. Most duck shooters think when a duck doesn't fall out of the sky that they missed. If it doesn't fall out of the sky, then they can't pick it up. They think they've missed it. Of the ducks that actually fall out of the sky, some will be retrieved and some will escape. And when you watch duck shooters and you count the number of ducks that escaped, this will typically between 20 and 40% of the ducks that fall out of the sky. And in the duck shooting literature, and there's a lot of duck shooting literature been studied extensively, they're called cripples. And they've been called cripples since the 1940s, 1950s, so that's just the word. So that's what you can see. You can't actually see what happens to the ducks that were missed. This slide here is from a study in Canada that was published in 1987. It was of 2,300 duck shooters in 3 provinces of Canada. And what you can see there is you've got, I don't know whether you can see my cursor on the screen, can you? Probably.
We cannot see the cursor.
Yeah, you cannot see the cursor. Okay. So you've got cripple rates here ranging from 30% to 45% in ducks. That's the dotted bars that you can see there. And in geese, it's lower in one province and higher in the other provinces. And there are 2 measurements here. That one is observations. And this study was quite unique around the world. When they watch shooters from hidden blinds so that the shooters didn't know they were being watched. Most research on duck shooters consists of asking duck shooters what happened. This one was quite different. So they watched duck shooters from hidden blinds. They scored the numbers of ducks that were downed but escaped. These are the cripples. And then they asked the duck shooters how many ducks were downed but escaped. Very different numbers. Okay, so you're asking the same shooter, you know exactly what happened because you've been sitting there watching them for the past 3 hours. And they tell you one thing, and the number that they give you is typically half to a third of the number that were actually crippled. Okay. So we can say that either duck shooters are terrible observers of their own activity, or perhaps they just forget what happened. Who knows? But that's the result. That's just a photocopy of the study if anybody actually wants to look it up. Quite an old study, but there was a lot of work done in the 70s, 80s, and 90s studying duck shooting. Not so much now. Why would you study it now? Everybody knows what happens. Duck shooting hasn't changed in all of this time. You've still got a pattern of pellets that come out of a shotgun, and shotguns have been pretty much the same for 140, 150 years at least. Now I want to go and look at the other side of the picture, the ducks that kept flying. If you go into a swamp and you catch ducks and x-ray them, and the first time this was ever done was in 1946. people, this is in a state in America, I can't remember which state, they noticed that some ducks didn't migrate. They just stayed where they were, and they wondered why. So they went and caught them and x-rayed them and found they had pellets embedded in their bodies, so they couldn't fly, couldn't migrate. And that spurred a whole heap of research over the next 70 or 80 years, where people have caught ducks, x-rayed them, and found pellets in their bodies. So what they know from these x-ray studies is that lots of these ducks that people thought they missed, they didn't miss at all. They hit them, but they didn't actually bring them down, so nothing could happen. Simultaneously with this work, back in the early days of this research, people got ducks, broke their wings, put radio collars on them, and worked out what happened to them when they were escaped. Pretty macabre work, but that's what people did. And they found that if you hit a duck sufficiently to bring it down, then even if you didn't retrieve it, most of these ducks die. If a duck is sufficiently wounded and injured to be brought down, normally something is broken, typically a wing, they will die. So all of these ducks that you find in the x-ray studies with pellets in them, they probably were not down. Most likely they were flying. And we're talking in some places 10 to 15 to 20% of ducks that you see out on a pond. Just go and watch some ducks in a pond. You'll find if they're shooting in the areas where these ducks frequent, you'll probably find 10% of the ducks have pellets in their bodies from being wounded. And if you think about it, when a duck is hit by pellets, the pellets can pass right through. If a pellet passes right through a duck, will you find it in an x-ray study? You will not. So they have to be hit, and the pellet has to stay in the duck, and the duck has to recover, because you won't find the dead ducks in the x-ray studies. This is from a Canadian hunting frequently asked questions website that I found online. And it says, can I use a pellet gun for hunting migratory game birds in Canada? And the answer is no. You can use bows, cross guns, and shotguns only. Pellet guns are prohibited because they are not powerful enough to ensure that birds are killed cleanly. Killed cleanly. It's a convenient fiction in all legislation all over the world that you can kill a duck cleanly with a shotgun. If you could do that reliably, there would be no ducks with pellets in their bodies when you go and x-rays random swamps. So this is a convenient fiction. It's the same fiction in Australia. It's promoted by hunting groups. The same hunting groups who mistakenly can't remember how many ducks they wounded, promote the idea that there is a clean kill in duck shooting. There isn't. With a rifle, you can, for example, in Australia, you can go out in Australia and you can shoot a kangaroo with a rifle, and you can disintegrate the brain in an instant. The shotguns are not like that. The other thing in the FAQ that I found, what are the regulations around retrieving migratory game birds that you have shot? You're required to have adequate means at your immediate disposal to retrieve a downed bird, and to do so as soon as the circumstances allow. In this case, in the case where a migratory game bird has been injured, you must retrieve and kill the bird as soon as the circumstances allow it. Pretty obviously, from all of these ducks that have been found in x-ray studies, some of the studies in Australia, incidentally, they x-rayed 70,000 ducks. It's a huge study. And as I said, depending on the species of duck, you will have 10 to 15, maybe even 20% of ducks with pellets in them. These are ducks that people have not retrieved because they cannot retrieve them. You can't retrieve a flying duck. My conclusion is that Canadian hunting authorities peddle the same misinformation as South Australian and Victorian and all of the other Australian states do, that you can retrieve a flying injured duck. Not possible. All right, now, just let me adjust my presentation here. Does anybody know about clay target shooters? Clay target shooters also use shotguns. And it's very common for clay target shooters to hit 49 out of 50 clays. You have a competition, and the AA clay target shooters can hit 49 out of 50, maybe 50 out of 50 clay targets. What is it about duck shooters that is so much worse than clay target shooters? Many clay target shooters get very close to 1-to-1, one pellet for one shot for one clay target. Good shooters will shoot 4 shells per bag duck, and the not so good will be up to 8. Lots of duck shooters are also clay target shooters. What is different about shooting clay targets from shooting ducks? Now let's have a look and find out. If you shoot a shotgun at a piece of paper from about 35 meters away, this is what you'll see. This particular piece of paper, and I hope you can see the pellets there, that was shot with 206 pellets, number 4 lead shot, number 4 steel shot, 36 grams of powder. It's the weight of the propellant in the shell. And if you look at that closely, you'll see that the pattern of the pellets is not regular. It can never be regular over the area that is shown on the piece of paper. It's quite random, and it actually has a mathematical description. It's called the bivariate normal distribution. And there are large areas in there which will conveniently fit the vital region of a duck. If this was a clay target shot shell instead of a duck shot shell, there would be double the number of pellets. There would be about 400 very small pellets as opposed to 200 much larger pellets. When you're shooting ducks, what are you actually shooting at? It's strange giving a presentation that's not interactive with people. Okay, it is not the duck. It's the duck's vital organs. If you don't hit the duck's vital organs, the duck will not stop flying. And that's the truth of it. So here's a picture of a duck. This is a mallard, actually. You've got mallards in America and Canada. And it shows the area of the vital areas of the duck, which is the wing bone, the brain, and so on. And that's about 10% of the body. So the rest of the body is non-vital areas, and if you hit those, the duck's not going to do anything. It's just going to keep flying. That doesn't mean the duck won't die. It could die with a pellet in some other part of its body, but it won't fall out of the sky. Here's that same pattern that I drew before, but what I've got now is white boxes all over the pattern, and those white boxes are about the size of the area that you have to hit with pellets. And that means that there are lots of areas in this pellet pattern that a duck will be able to be in, and you will not kill it if you hit that area. So what I've said here is that skill will get you close enough to regularly wound, but killing a duck is purely a matter of luck. It's got nothing to do with the skill. All skill does is get you close. Here's an X-ray of a duck that's got quite a few pellets in it. Probably been shot more than once. It's got 9 pellets in it. That's probably the result of a couple of woundings rather than just one, because ducks can get hit over and over again. I think the record in the Victorian X-ray studies here in Australia was one duck had 14 pellets in it. It had probably been shot 3 or 4 times. Okay, but if you don't hit it in the right place, the duck doesn't die. The duck doesn't fall out of the sky. It may die, but it won't fall out of the sky. This is actually an American duck. I think American or Canadian canvasback. I think you have those over there. That's from that study. If you look at where you find pellets in ducks, you'll find pellets in the breast, you find pellets in the wings, you find pellets in the neck, and you find pellets in the head. And by definition, these are ducks that were shot but didn't die. So if you want to know why there are so few embedded pellets in the wings, 7.6%, and that's mainly because when a duck is hit by pellets and they break the wing, then the duck will not be found by an X-ray study. It will be dead, either because the shooter caught it or some other reason. Oops. So the difference between a clay target and a black duck. Clay targets come in various sizes. They fly at about, they'll be propelled at about 70 kilometers an hour. You got 400 pellets. Only one of them has to hit the clay target. With a black duck, the vital area is quite small. It's flying at a similar speed. You've only got 200 pellets, and you probably need 3 to 4 pellets to bring the duck down. And that's why you know it's much easier to hit and bring down a clay target than a duck. So the people who can hit 49 out of 50 clay targets, their accuracy doesn't decrease when they're shooting ducks, but the ducks don't fall down with only 1 pellet in them. So a single pellet will break a clay. It just needs enough energy. But to down a duck, you need to break a wing or cause a catastrophic injury to a vital organ like the heart, lungs, or whatever. Most pellets hitting a duck won't cause a catastrophic injury. All right, summary and conclusions, and then we can go to questions. You can't regulate the laws of physics. They are what they are. You can't aim shotgun pellets. They hit where they hit. If you can get close to 1 shot per clay, then you will almost always get close enough to a duck to wound it. Skilled shooters wound far more ducks than poor shooters. Poor shooters just don't get close enough. Good shooters always get close. Duck shooting violates regularly and unavoidably the fundamental public expectation that animals killed for food will be killed humanely. They are not. So I think that's where I will end it now.